This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Black Hand of the Mexican Mafia. Prison gang politics.
Hey folks, my name is Rene Enriquez and you're watching Uncensored. I wanted to talk about a topic that has been brought up in the news and discussed among the gang subculture extensively. So that's the stopping of the drive-bys. In the early 90s, Sano Ojeda was one of the first individuals to come up with the concept of stopping the drive-bys when he called a meeting at Salvador Park. I think it was 1990. I don't know the exact date. I got it somewhere in a video or something like that. But he was the individual who first brought up the concept, and it worked pretty well for him. He brought about 300 people together. They had a meeting at the park, and he wrested control of Orange County into his hands pretty efficiently with the one meeting. In fact, he had control of the county, but he insinuated himself further into the fabric of all the gangs when he held that meeting. After that, there was an individual by the name of Gilbert Maurice that brought up an idea in Los Angeles County Jail. Gilbert Maurice, Little Mo from White Fence, was my crimey in my murder convictions. And he said one day, let's stop the drive-bys. Because we had seen a rash of media and news coverage and newspaper and everything on kids getting killed as a result of friendly fire or collateral damage, rather. And everybody was against that. Everybody in the mob was against killing kids. So, that concept came up, and it was myself and Chuco Castro, Black Dan Barella, Wedosha. I contacted them first with the concept, and they liked it. In fact, it was Night Owl Castro from 18th Street who opposed it so badly. He was fighting against it adamantly, saying that nobody would ever agree to a gang truce and that it would never work. He did this because his homeboys were such frequent violators of killing kids. They had a long history of catching kids in crossfire, and that's not to mention the Burlington fire that resulted in a bunch of children expiring. In fact, my buddy Jesse Katz did a good book on it called The Rent Collectors, and it covers one specific shooting where a child was killed. It's really a case study about MacArthur Park and the 18th Street Gang and one child that lost his life as a result of these shootings. So there's been a lot of history involved in these drive-bys and collateral shootings and innocent people losing their lives as a result of it. Because of that, the Mexican Mafia came up with the concept of stopping the drive-bys, and the original concept was, hey, we'll get the sheriffs to host it. In fact, I was negotiating with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department while I was in 2904. It was kind of like the super maximum security high power. It's only like 6 cells in there. And it was after the attorney room stabbing where we attempted, myself and Benjamin Peters, attempted to eliminate another Mexican Mafia member, Salvador Buenostro. It was during my stay there that this concept came up. Actually, Mo mentioned it when we were 1750. I started developing it later, but I am not the sole individual responsible for bringing this to fruition. There's a lot of guys like Pee Wee Aguirre, Samailon, all these individuals that were out on the streets at the time. Belon from Norwalk, Wedosha Shryak, Black Dan Barella, but their key architect was Chuco Castro. Unbeknownst to me, he was working with the feds at the time, so it was a good idea for him to do it, right? He was bringing information to the feds. It was hot off the press, and it was bringing more people into the fold in terms of overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy in terms of RICO, right? The racketeering influence corrupt organization. This is when he was working on the case brought about by the United States Attorney and the FBI, known as United States versus Alex Aguirre et al. And it's also named United States versus Raymond Shryock et al. So I took it to Chuco, and Chuco started formulating the idea on the streets. And it took a life of its own. They started calling meetings. It spread like wildfire. But the reality is drive-bys never really stopped. Everybody thinks they did. There was a reduction, immediate reduction in the statistics that reflected gang drive-bys, right? But the reality is killing never stopped. It never stopped in terms of the gang violence. Eliminations were continuing. In fact, the original concept was stop the car, get off, and walk up to the individual if you have beef with them and settle it that way. You know, if that means pew-pews, then you do pew-pews, right? But it was walk up, address your issue, and that's it. From that point, it began corrupting, right? It began corrupting to where individuals would pull up the car, open the door, and set their one foot on the ground and discharge their toys. And that became acceptable. And then there became the corruption of that whole process where anybody that participated in a drive-by shooting was fined and taxed and green-lighted. The whole gang would be green-lighted. So there's a lot of history in the piece I'm going to show you, which was a clip that I did for NGIC, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I think that you'll see some of the historic stuff and what it eventually became even today. In fact, there were specific gangs that frequently violated this edict, stopping drive-bys. One of them was Artesia. The founder, Weddle Buff Flores, his grandkids frequently violated that edict. They would go to Hawaiian Gardens, shoot at Hawaiian Gardens, and then come back to the neighborhood. When Hawaiian Gardens would retaliate, they would go sniveling to the mob and say, look, they violated the edict. They violated the edict. And they would get Hawaiian Gardens placed on the green light list. This was like a shame. It was like a shame, an abuse of power. This happened frequently with the Flores and the Borgueño family. And ultimately, one of the Borgueño relatives was eliminated by Hawaiian Gardens. And I empathize with the family. My condolences to the family, everybody involved for all the life lost in all of this. It's just a terrible reality. But there's a lot of history in this drive-by thing, and nobody's really scratched it. You know, they've talked about it, but from an inside perspective, I was involved in it. I wasn't the sole orchestrator. I was the individual who enforced the aspect. If they came to the county jail after X date for committing a drive-by, then they would be penalized. So I was there when 18th Street had violated the edict, and Nidal Castro offered me $10K to take them off of the lista. Foolishly, I refused that money based on a moral standpoint. I just told them, no, there's no exceptions, and that's it. Your homeboys are going to suffer the consequences, and boom, boom, they suffered the consequences. But again, that rule has since corrupted to this watered down drive up, put one foot out the door, and discharge your instrument, and that's what happened, you know, and that's what happens today. So, I mean, it was a great way for the Mexican Mafia to insinuate itself into the Hispanic gang areas in greater Los Angeles and Riverside, San Diego, everywhere. It spread everywhere. But it wasn't based on a moral principle. Part of it initially was like, hey, we don't want kids to be harmed or old ladies to be harmed or innocent people to be harmed. It was based on that. But the reality was it became a way for the Mexican Mafia to insinuate itself into the gang community. And it did really well. Developed a program from that, which is the taxation extortion program. A lot of things happened from that. But I'm going to run this clip for you now. I hope you enjoy it. It's again, I did it for the FBI back in the day. Video's probably about 15 years old. but it reflects some of the realities of today. Uh, Hope you like that, folks. Hope you enjoy this video. I'm gonna let you check it out now.
Chuco Castro, Black Dan Barella. There are a variety of different individuals who participated in the concept of stopping the drive-bys. It came about as a result of seeing Sana Ojela's meetings in Orange County. He had called these meetings in the early 1990s to halt drive-bys and stop Mexican on Mexican violence in his territory. And we seen this individual holding meetings, and he was successful in his endeavors. He would call about these meetings and tell these individuals, stop drive-bys, stop brown on brown violence, and focus your aggression towards the blacks. Sana had already insinuated himself into the Hispanic gang subculture in Orange County, the Sureños particularly, and he did well there. And we were attempting to replicate his success, but we wanted a grander scale. So while I was in the county jail in High Power, there was a group of individuals there, and the true originator of this concept was an individual by the name of Gilbert Maurice from White Fence. We used to call him the brainstem because he had limited intellect, and we jokingly said that his brain wasn't fully developed and he only had this little brainstem in his head. But one day, we're sitting back, a group of cardenales talking, and he says, "Why don't we stop the drive-bys?" And then he just walked away. But we looked at each other and said, "This is a brilliant idea. This is a great idea for the Mexican Mafia to horizontally integrate into the gang subculture, the Sureños." So we started kicking around the idea, the cardenales in the county jail. A few were resistant, particularly the individuals from 18th Street. Ruben Castro was totally against it. We can't do that. Our camaradas are warrior class. They have to have enemies or they'll turn on each other. Completely and totally resistant. Some cardenales were adamantly opposed to this kind of project for the Mexican Mafia. It had never been done before. So I contacted the cardenales on the streets. Ernie Castro, Chuco from BNE. He's currently in WITSEC, the Witness Protection Program. And he was like my strongest political ally. I called him and tossed the idea to him. On the streets at the time were Black Dan Barella, Jesse Pelon Moreno, Weroshai Shrayak, Pee Wee Aguirre, Spayon Gallardo, Tonito from Sereno, and a host of other brothers. And Chuco liked the idea. We tossed around the idea of how we would effectuate this, how we would bring it to fruition. And it was decided that we would call a meeting at the park. And I would enforce the jail aspect of it. I would send message throughout the county jail system and to state prison. If you come in for a drive-by, you're going to be targeted for green light. You will be placed on the lista and murdered. On the streets, they sent out the same message. They called the first meeting at Elysian Park in Los Angeles, California, and thousands of individuals showed up. It was here that we realized that this is a catalyst for the Mexican Mafia's true integration into the Hispanic gang subculture. It was as if we had walked upon and stepped and stumbled upon a gold mine. We had seen this ability. These individuals would show up when we called. They would do what we said. And it was at those meetings that we appointed representatives for each gang. These individuals would be in charge of communication for the organization. And then they implemented a taxation program, we call it the program, where each gang would be responsible for paying tribute to the Mexican Mafia based on their generation of illicit monies. Originally, the concept was to tax narcotics traffickers, narcotics dealers in the specific gang regions, but the corruption occurred. It was then decided by the cardenales on the streets that each gang was responsible for paying cardenales a specific amount of money or weapons. And this was the true foundation of the organization. I think this is the genesis of the Mexican Mafia evolving from prison gang to organization, because we had a group of progressive thinkers, we had individuals who had vision and who were not afraid of the political fallout. Indeed, it was a huge accomplishment for the organization. There was massive media coverage on this. There was Los Angeles Times, World News, CNN, Fox. And the Mexican Mafia members who participated were elevated in their status because of this. So this was a step that the Mexican Mafia needed to take in order to become a true organization. It was then that the Cardenales started really focusing on the generation of finances. I got on the ground floor. If anybody came into the county jail having committed the drive-by after the edict was rendered, we targeted them and we hit them, particularly individuals from 18th Street. They would not adhere to it. Maravilla was resistant to it, so they're placed on the green light list. A variety of other gangs were resistant to this edict. We placed them on the green light list. And this is when this phenomena occurred, the green lighting of gangs. We would target them, victimize them, kill some of them, and then charge them money to come off of the lista, and they would adhere to our orders. But as I was on the ground floor, I was probably one of the lowest paid earners. This was at its inception. This is when the mafia really started making money. I wasn't free, so I couldn't make the money that they made. But my objective wasn't about material gain. It was about creating an organization that was self-sustaining, that was going to last, that was going to be something to be reckoned with. My whole objective was to participate in something that was bigger than the organization itself, that would elevate it in status, that would make it a force to be reckoned with. But basically, we've seen this as the catalyst of our truly becoming an organization and the ability to generate finances and establish representation throughout all Sureños in California. The mentality of the organization, the philosophies of the organization, and the ideology actually evolved in this one instance. It was then that other Cardenales seen that they had already controlled by virtue of their membership territories. It was here that we started cutting up territories and turfs and establishing these contemporary rules about turf encroachment, about stealing from Cardenales, about poaching other crew members and crew hopping. These rules came into play in the 1990s. They had never existed before for the organization. But the organization truly went to this more metamorphosis. It had been a group of monosyllabic, knuckle-dragging thugs. What you typically see in the movie American Me, these individuals actually replicated this behavior. But in this time, at this period, these individuals started to become mafiosos. They started to assume the role and seeing themselves as gangsters. They already possessed this mentality, this elitist, egocentric, narcissistic mentality. But it is here that the organization had elevated. It had went beyond the parameters of what confined it in prison.
There you have it, folks. You've seen the current and the past on drive-by shootings. Hope you enjoyed the content. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hype that button. We also have memberships available here on YouTube and Patreon, so be sure to join if you can. It's a way to support the channel. With that said, folks, hope you're enjoying the holiday weekend. Peace out.
This is Rene Enriquez. Nickname Boxer.